Okay, go.
I always say boys and girls. All right, so what we're going to be doing today, I'm going to demonstrate a well-written recipe. And so we've been working on recipe parts and sources. And if you look on the board, those are your 6 parts that we went over yesterday. All right, so the first thing that I want you to do on your recipe, I want you to find the yield and circle it and label it. So so how many servings does this recipe make? 12 muffins. Okay, so we're going to start with, now if you look at your ingredients, the first thing I need, and I have pre-measured everything to save time, we need all-purpose flour. So what do we know about all-purpose flour? All-purpose flour is used for everything, that's correct. I have 1 tablespoon of sugar. Now that should tell you something about these muffins. Only 1 tablespoon of sugar is not very much. So what about these muffins? They're not very sweet. Very good. All right, we're using 2½ teaspoons of baking powder, which is a leavening agent. It will cause it to rise. We're using 1/2 teaspoon of salt. And those are all of my dry ingredients that I pre-measured and mixed in a bowl. So I'm going to take a spoon, and we just want to, like we did with our flour and measuring, we're just going to gently incorporate it. And then the next thing we're going to add would be 3 cups of grated cheddar cheese. We always get started. Do you like cheddar cheese? Do you like cheese? Good, good. So I'm going to dump my cheddar cheese in the dry ingredients, and I'm just going to gently coat the cheese with the flour. Like this. So you notice I'm not beating it, that's that term folding that we learned last week. Okay. Now, the next ingredient that we're going to add, we need 1 egg, 1 cup of milk. So I'm going to use my liquid measuring cup to measure my milk. And we need 1/4 cup of butter, which is 1/2 stick. And so in just a minute, I'm going to melt this. So I'm going to measure my milk. Now, do y'all remember from kitchen conundrums, when I'm measuring milk, what am I supposed to do with the liquid measuring cup? Once I put it in the cup, what do I do? I get eye level with it. Very good, Riley. So, I pour my milk, and I look, and that's exactly 1 cup. So I'm going to add my milk, first I'm going to crack the egg, and I'm going to add the egg to the milk. I'm actually going to change my glove right now since I've got egg on. Because this all has to do with food safety. And I'm going to beat that egg inside of my milk. And then I'm going to add that to the dry ingredients and my cheese. Okay. So now I'm going to incorporate all of that together. And I still have 1 more ingredient to add. And what can you tell me that I need to add by looking at your recipe? The last ingredient, the butter. And what do I soften the butter or do I melt it? I melt it. All right, so we can do that in the microwave. I'm going to cover my butter with a towel so it will not splatter in the microwave because that can be messy. And that butter has come straight out of the refrigerator. So about 35 to 40 seconds to melt it. Now while that's melting, I want you to go to your recipe and I want you to put a bracket around the list of ingredients and amounts. So look at number 2, find your list of ingredients and amounts. All right, put a bracket and label ingredients. We're drawing a line, yes. Once you do that, I want you to go to the directions. Now, I want you to notice something about these directions because this recipe is different than one we worked with last week. Is that paragraph form or is it step-by-step directions? Paragraph form. So what I want you to do, I want you to circle that and I want you to put directions. Now you have to be careful. Let me check this for a moment. A little bit more. You have to be careful with step-by-step directions versus paragraph directions, because which one is easier to follow? The numbered steps, very good. So when you have paragraphs, you need to make sure that you're following all the steps. So our butter's melted. And your butter is the fat in this recipe, which gives it a lot of flavor. Now, I'm stirring that together. Tell me, what is the temperature that my oven should be on? 350, and I preheated it. And why do I preheat the oven? Very good, and that also allows for even baking. All right. So find your cooking time and temperature, which is 350 for how many minutes? 20 minutes, okay, and circle that. I need this. How many cup baking pans should I be using? One, but how many cups? 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 12. Very good. And so to keep my muffins from sticking, I'm going to spray with nonstick. And how do I spray? Over the sink or over the floor? Sink. And why? So we won't go what? Sliding across the floor. And make sure you spray it well, because with all the cheese in this, sometimes they can get sticky. Okay, so now I'm ready to put my muffin batter in the pan. I actually, if you'll notice, I've used a rubber spatula because that helps me get all of the batter from the sides at the end, because we want to use every morsel of this. Now, when I'm filling a batter, a muffin pan like this, I start on the outside, so I won't have to go across, and I'll show you about that in just a minute. And you fill it about 2/3 cup full. And I'm gonna come back, and if I've got some extra, I'll add to these to make sure they're all even. So then I'll start here. Now these, excuse me. These cheese muffins are good with like soup and chili. They taste like a good cheese biscuit. I mean, you can just eat them for breakfast. You can have them for a snack, but you can have them, as I said, it's a good thing to eat with. Instead of bread, you can have your muffin with your soup or your chili. Now I have some left, so I'm gonna go back and add to some of these and make sure that they all are even. And if you notice that these muffins always make a generous amount. I always get 12 out. And you can actually make these and you can freeze these. I'm gonna take a little bit extra there and add there. Now, when I finish doing that, I actually take a clean paper towel and I go around and make sure that I don't have any on the pan, because we don't want that to burn. And this is what your cheese muffins will look like. Now,